Welcome to Influential Entrepreneurs, bringing you interviews with elite business leaders and experts, sharing tips and strategies for elevating your business to the next level. Here's your host, Mike Saunders.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Influential Entrepreneurs. This is Mike Saunders, the Authority Positioning Coach. Today we have with us Dave, the Laundromat Millionaire Menz. Dave, welcome to the program.
Hi, Mike. Thanks for having me. Yeah, I appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm excited to talk to you because it's kind of like that old Tom Stanley book, The Millionaire Next Door. Who would have thought that millionaires would drive old pickup trucks or own a junkyard or, whatever the case is. So I'm excited to learn about Laundromat Millionaire. Give us a little bit of your background and your entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah, my quick background is I grew up in poverty in Flint, Michigan as a young kid. Didn't know anyone that was a business owner or an entrepreneur, but just always had that dream, always had that itch in my mind. When I became a young adult, I didn't have the opportunity to go to college, didn't want to borrow a bunch of money, and parents didn't have the money to help me. So I kind of found my own way through an entry-level position in corporate America and worked there for 12, 13 years, learned a lot of valuable skills, and one day in my, late 20s, early 30s, just had this aha moment of, what am I doing? This isn't my life. I don't want to work in corporate America. I always wanted to own my own business, and for some reason I lost touch of that somewhere along the way. And so at that point in my life, I just decided to kind of reboot. My wife and I, we had a young family. We saved up for 4 or 5 years, some seed money to buy our first business, not really knowing what that business would be, but just knowing that's where we wanted to go on our path. And long story short, found a local laundromat a couple miles from our house. Here outside of Cincinnati, Ohio. And it was a rundown dump. It was a complete and total mess. I was actually losing money when we bought it, which is probably the only reason we could afford it.
Yeah.
And we took the dive, invested a lot of our own money, our own sweat equity, learned through the cliche, the school of hard knocks, by doing a lot of reading and networking and promoting and things like that, and turned the business around into a very profitable business in a matter of 7 or 8 months. And I just kind of caught the bug, and I was like, well, wow, if I can do this once, why can't I do this again? And so it just kind of took off, and now I'm to the point where I have 5 laundromats here in Cincinnati, and we have a pretty robust laundry pickup and delivery service that services all of Cincinnati. And so that's kind of the quick version of my entrepreneurial journey, if you will.
Yeah. Well, I think it's interesting how you see something and then it's like, well, that kind of worked a little bit, and I could do that again, or I could improve on
Right.
that. And when I hear the word laundromat, I didn't put. I was interested that you just said we have a robust pickup and delivery. So it's not just sitting around waiting for people to come in and put coins or credit cards in a machine and do the laundry. Right. You are now adding these services. So makes me think this. When you think about how much could a concept scale, so how big is the industry? Would someone sit back and go, well, that's all fine and good for Dave, but at some point this industry is going to go away. I mean, how many people just don't have a washer and a dryer where they're going to come to this laundromat? What is the outlook in the industry look like in your opinion?
Yeah, that's one of the big misconceptions about our industry, which, to be honest with you, Mike, a lot of people in our industry would like to keep it that way.
So don't answer this question if you don't want to.
No, I actually want to. I'm very adamant about promoting our industry outside of our industry, and I think it's the best small business in America, and so I'm not afraid to say that. And part of that is through vertical integration, which is what we're talking about, creating additional revenue streams and services. But one of the things that's really misunderstood about the laundromat business is that the only people that use laundromat are poor people. And that's just not true. There are lower income people that don't have washers and dryers in their homes and apartments. I'm sure that will always be that way to a certain extent. A lot of them, even if they have a washer and dryer hookup, they just can't afford a washer and dryer.
Yeah.
And for some of us, that seems crazy that they couldn't, they would spend $20 a week every week all year and never have $500, $1,000 to buy a washer and dryer. But when you grow up poor, like I did, then you understand that is reality for people. And a lot of people do claw their way out of that situation. But there's unfortunately always people behind them. that are coming along, and they are in that situation at the moment. So that's the first thing, is I'm very confident that our industry will always be in pretty high demand for that reason. But the reality is that only about 40% of our revenue actually comes from lower income people. The other 60% of our income comes from everyday middle class Americans who have washers and dryers in their homes and apartments, and even upper middle class. And the reason for that is because laundry never ends. As we all know, every day you do your laundry, even if you get caught up, tomorrow you're behind again. And so what happens is everyone that owns washers and dryers, including me and you, our washers and dryers at some point break down. And when they do, a lot of times it takes a few weeks to get someone out. Sometimes they got to order a part. And what happens every day is that your laundry is still piling up.
Yeah.
And a lot of middle class and upper middle class Americans have reached the point in their life where they don't have to triage their life. And they've done that through discipline and hard work and planning. And so when they have situations like this come up where their residential washer and dryer breaks, one of the first things that pops into their mind is, well, if I got to wait 3 weeks for a part, I don't want my laundry to be piled up for 3 weeks. And so they may not necessarily do it that day, but a lot of times what happens is within 3 or 4 or 5 days, they'll start to get 3 or 4 loads of laundry, and they don't want it to get any bigger, and so they'll pile it into the minivan or SUV, and they'll take it to the local laundromat. And so if you multiply that by every middle class and upper middle class family in America, let's say they all use a laundromat 2 or 3 times, maybe a year, it amounts to a substantial amount of business that's always kind of this recirculating revenue stream. Another portion of revenue for most what I call modernized high-end laundromats, which is what I run, is a comforter service. And so laundromats can wash and clean comforters almost as effectively as a dry cleaner can, but at about half the price. And so we generate about 20% of our revenue from just from comforters, pillows, sleeping bags, things that are too big to fit in a residential washer and dryer. And if you put them in there, you'll probably break the machine. And so when you offer that type of a service, that ends up being a substantial portion of your revenue. And then aside from the pickup and delivery, we also have just a residential drop-off laundry service where people can just drop off their laundry, and they pay us a premium, and our employees process the laundry professionally for them, wash, dry, fold, hang, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And it can be, we kind of see it as like a good, better, best business model. The good being the self-serve business, the better being the drop-off services. And you can also, put drop-off dry cleaning in there where you wholesale the dry cleaning out to a local dry cleaning plant, and just, you have your margins. And you also have a situation with the pickup and delivery. The laundromat industry is roughly an $8 billion a year industry right now, and it's actually growing. A lot of people aren't aware of that. So the local, small, mom-and-pop, run-down, dark, dingy, dirty laundromats of the past, those are dying. But what's replacing them is the modern-day laundromat, which is what I'm describing to you.
Yeah.
And so our industry is actually thriving and growing like never before. And especially by the time you put things like laundry pickup and delivery, which is a segment that a lot of people believe the laundry pickup and delivery industry will actually outgrow the self-serve industry in gross sales in the next 5 to 10 years, because society is just shifting and valuing their time more than ever before.
Yeah, I can
call
see
the
that.
Amazon economy.
Yeah, I can see someone having a brand new, great washer and dryer, no problems, but you're going to pick up and deliver and fold, and wow, I don't have time to even use the dumb washer and dryer. So I think that is a huge point that you make. Another thing that jumped out at me is the comforter, because I think that you should probably have your comforter dry clean once, twice a year, probably. But here's the thought that crossed my mind. If you can do it, or since you can do it for about half the cost of a dry cleaner, how do you get the word out? Because I would have never dreamt, like if my wife was saying, hey, we need to get the comforter clean, we would have never thought, let's go look for a laundromat to have it done. We would just think, let's just take it where we take our shirts. How do you get the word out and let people know about that?
Yeah, just like anything else in the modern day, everybody's got their nose in their phone all day, and so you want to be digital marketing. And when you're already promoting your drop-off laundry service and your pickup and delivery services, it's just another service. It's just another product. Yeah. It's not really any different. one of the things a lot of people don't realize, too, is that most comforters don't need to be dry cleaned. That may have been the case 40, 50 years ago, which I guess is where the stereotype comes from. But a lot of people just assume that their comforters have to be dry cleaned, and I'm not sure why that is. But modern-day comforters nowadays, most of them don't need to be. And so if you take it to a dry cleaner, you're going to pay a premium for that, but there's really no reason. So what I tell people to do is just look at the care tag on your comforter. Yeah, if it's a $800 comforter, it may need to be dry cleaned depending on what it's made out of. But those $100, $150, $200, $250 comforters don't usually need to be dry cleaned. And you mentioned a couple times a year. Obviously, it depends on how often you use a comforter, but they actually recommend that they're cleaned every month. And some people are better about that than others, as you can imagine, just like with bedding or anything else in life. But it ends up being a substantial portion of our revenue, and it's just a matter of offering a premium professional product at a reasonable price.
Yeah. Well, that's the recipe for success.
Business.
You think about all the shows or the episodes of Shark Tank we see. It's like if you can offer a solution to a problem at a reasonable price and they can scale it, everybody wins. Nobody is getting taken advantage of. So I know that you are, you've got your podcast, you've got a book coming out, you've got a coaching or a training program to teach other people to do what you have done, because I'm certain with the stereotypes that we've been discussing and probably a half a dozen more that are out there, someone might go, I could do what old Dave is doing, but someone just needs to guide me. So what is your offering, and how do you come alongside and coach and guide people that might want to look at doing this in their area?
Yeah, so when I realized that I kind of had the heart that wanted to teach and mentor people, first thing I looked at is, okay, how can I leverage and scale myself, not to make more money, but to serve more people.
Yeah.
And so I have my podcast, which obviously, is free to listen to, and I have a YouTube channel. They're under the Laundromat Millionaire brand, and those things are totally free. I have a book coming out on October 1st called Laundromat Millionaire, which is the brand of my coaching business. And they'll be able to get that everywhere you can find a book, pretty much. And so those are some pretty inexpensive or free resources that are available. I have a Facebook group online called Laundromat Millionaire Owners Group, totally free to join. Just send through a request and I'll approve you, and you can network with thousands of laundromat owners all across the country, and that includes me. I try to comment on everything that's on my group. And so those are some pretty effective and efficient and inexpensive ways to learn about the industry, network with the industry. And then I do offer online coaching services and, mentoring services through my website, laundromatmillionaire.com. And I offer a free 20-minute consultation to anyone that's really interested. They can request that right through my website. I'm not trying to build a large consulting agency, so, I do have limited capacity, but all the coaching is done with me personally, one-on-one. I'm just looking for, really what I'm looking to do, Mike, is just get the word out in the world that the laundromat industry is not the stereotypical negative connotation that everybody has associated with it.
Yeah.
I'm very passionate about the industry. It's changed my life. It's changed my family tree. And I've been able to do all those things, like you talked about, the win-win proposition, by just serving others and charging a fair price for my value that I deliver to the market. And so I'm just trying to get the word out in the world, to be honest with you, that the laundromat business is, one of the best small businesses in America for a lot of the reasons we just talked about. But it's all predicated on doing it the right way.
Yeah, of course. And I think if someone sits down and goes, I'm going to get out of corporate America and start my own business, and rather than start from scratch, I'm going to buy a franchise. And so then there's that whole road to go down. But this is almost like a hybrid in between, where you could probably point people in a direction to either buy a struggling laundromat and then modernize it, or, here's a space, let's put in a laundromat and a modern laundromat. So what type of approach do you recommend? And then what ballpark out of pocket are you talking about? You can get some franchises that are $200,000-$400,000 out of pocket. So what would someone looking to start or modernize a laundromat be looking at out of pocket?
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of organizations out there trying to franchise our industry right now. It's never been done successfully in the past, and I don't know that it will be this time, but there's a lot of them trying. And the main reason I believe it's not is because with franchises, in my opinion, they have to bring a certain level of value to justify royalties in perpetuity. And the reality is that there's really no value proposition associated with a franchise long term. In the short term, if you don't know the business, you don't know the industry, they can help you find a location. The knowledge is there. They can provide employee handbooks and procedures and coaching and mentoring and all those things. And there's a lot of value in those things. But once you've learned those things, there's really no value in having a franchise long term. And so what I recommend people do is, whether it's me or another coach in the industry, is find a really great independent coach like myself, pay them what their fees are, and, they should allow you to accelerate your education, your knowledge, your experience. But the good news is, when I stop bringing you value, you stop paying me. And I tell all my coaching clients, we can still be friends. I can never have too many friends. I always want my network to be bigger with great people doing great things in the world. But at the end of the day, if I'm not bringing you value, there's no reason for you to be paying me royalties in perpetuity. So I don't have anything against franchises. I think they're fantastic in a lot of industries. I just personally don't see a need for them in our industry. Just my opinion.
Yeah.
So the second part to your question is, when it comes to entering the industry, it really depends on the person and their capital position. Because building a new laundromat on the low end of things can be a $300,000 investment. And obviously you can borrow some of that. You don't have to have all the cash. But on the high end of things, it can be a couple $1 million to build a high-end laundromat that's a big facility, especially if you buy real estate and things like that. So obviously, if you don't have the capital to make an investment like that, then you kind of have to start at the other end of the industry, which is, by the way, what I did. And you can do very successfully. And that's taking over an older, rundown laundromat and fixing it up. If you have the money to pay contractors to do the work, great. If you don't, you can do what I did, which is kind of a hybrid. You can do a lot of sweat equity, a lot of long nights, a lot of YouTube videos, and learning certain skills of how to hang drywall and things like that. You do what you have to do to be successful in life. And if you're willing to do those things, the interesting thing about our industry and why I'm so passionate about it right now is we're a vital community resource. We were deemed essential during COVID. And there's a reason for that, because it's a hygiene issue. People need clean clothes. They don't want them. They need them. And the reality is we're important to every community that we serve. And so if there's a rundown, dumpy laundromat that's not properly serving its community, then that's a problem for that community. And I would love to see someone take these opportunities all across the country, make them into viable businesses, because it betters the community. And there's no reason they can't be profitable by doing the same thing. So the answer is that you can do any of these things. You can do all of these things, and they all have pros and cons to them. But also, one of the beauties of our industry is I entered this industry with roughly $25,000 in cash and a lot of work ethic. And I work 90 to 100 hours a week between my full-time job and putting a lot of sweat equity into my stores for 4 or 5 years without taking any money out of my businesses. Every penny the businesses made, I reinvested back in them, and I just kept making them better and better and better and better. And then eventually I woke up one day and was like, okay, I can quit my job. I can replace my income from my job. And so I did that. And then that's when my business really kind of went straight to the moon, when I was able to focus on it full time without having this, job distracting me. And I had some income and some revenue and 4 or 5 years worth of education to learn from. And so that's when I really started scaling. After 8 or 9 years of doing this, I just woke up one day and looked at my wife and said, when we started this, 8 or 9 years ago, our net worth was roughly $50,000. And now it's over $1 million. And I looked at her and I was just like, we're millionaires. Like, who would have ever dreamed that?
Who would have thunk it?
$45,000. Yeah. So there's many different ways to enter the industry. If you're willing to do certain things associated with certain business models, there's really no limitation. You just have to have a really good work ethic, a lot of grit, and you need a little bit of money for sure. I mean, it's I don't want to sell this as this get rich quick kind of thing.
Yep.
But it's a beautiful business.
It's off the beaten path enough that maybe getting some guidance from you and picking this up in your certain area, there's much less competition and potentially much more upside. So I just really enjoy when I see these kind of things where it's, a unique offering off the beaten path, but yet kind of like I don't know, the word blue collars is the right word, but kind of like something where it's just not going to go away. Like you said, it's just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger as time goes by. So Dave, thank you for coming on today. If people are interested in reaching out and listening to your podcast, getting a copy of your book, learning more about what you offer, what's the best way that they can reach out and connect with you?
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Well, thanks for taking the time to have me on here, first of all. I really appreciate it. They can just reach me through my website, laundromatmillionaire.com. That links to my coaching services, my book on there, which will be out in a few months, and our podcast link is on there as well. So they can find everything right through that one website.
Perfect. Well, Dave, thank you so much for your time today.
Sure. Yeah, thank you, Mike. Have a great one.
You've been listening to Influential Entrepreneurs with Mike Saunders. To learn more about the resources mentioned on today's show or listen to past episodes, visit www.influentialentrepreneurssradio.com.